Well, thank you, Dr. Akbar, and also to Ram Madhav. It's a pleasure to be here and to be here at this wonderful conference. And the India Foundation, RSIS, and other partners from Bangladesh and Sri Lanka that have put this conference together. I want to just commend them for bringing such a thoughtful conversation and such a diversity of views and opinions together. It certainly is a timely moment to be talking about the Indian Ocean and the issues of comedy, connectivity, and culture. The United States, I think, has long recognized the strategic significance of the Indian Ocean. In fact, over 100 years ago, U.S. Admiral Alfred Mahan, one of the important American strategists of the 19th century, said that the destiny of the world will be decided upon the waters of the Indian Ocean. So here we are today kind of talking a little bit about that destiny. How will we write that destiny? Is it going to be a story of friendly cooperation, mutual benefit, or one of adversarial competition and unnecessary conflict? And I think that that's a little bit the conversations that we've been hearing throughout this morning and into the afternoon. Is this going to be a story where millions will be lifted out of poverty, or one where millions will be condemned to suffer the consequences of inaction? Very different outcomes and very different destinies lie ahead, depending on whether we can put in place and persevere a strong, transparent, and rules-based architecture that can bring about the peace and the prosperity that can bring benefit to all. That means a system where all countries pursue territorial claims in accordance with international law. It means a system that engenders greater cooperation on natural disasters, on maritime security, and on creating sustainable opportunities. And it means a system that enhances regional economic connectivity across the Indian Ocean, and particularly in South Asia. Now, much has been said about the need for creating greater connectivity and greater trade integration in South Asia. The fact of the matter is that it is and continues to this day to be one of the least economically integrated regions in the world. Less than 6% of the trade of South Asia is within South Asia. Most all of the trade flows out. Compare that to North America, where 50% of total exports are within the region, or Europe, where more than 70% has been within Europe. So you can see the gap. And indeed, we know that better economic connectivity can do for the countries of South Asia, and in fact across the Indo-Pacific, what connectivity has increasingly demonstrated across the ASEAN countries. The U.S. has put a high premium, therefore, on trying to advance connectivity within South Asia and between South Asia and Southeast Asia. Because we know that as connectivity grows across this region and opportunities grow within this region, it also will enhance connectivity and opportunity for the United States. In fact, I think if you think about the rebalance to Asia that has been the fundamental approach of the Obama administration to its engagements in Asia, the rebalance is fundamentally a recognition that growth and prosperity and security in Asia is increasingly going to determine and influence the security and the prosperity of the American people, and that the United States has a strong stake in advancing that agenda. So I know that in the previous panel that my colleague Rear Admiral Gabrielson pointed out that the stability of the Indo-Pacific and the safety of its sea lanes are of vital interest to the United States. And you all know that 25% of the world's traded goods and seaborne oil crosses the Strait of Malacca, and that means 1/4 of the global economy. 1/4 of the global economy is dependent on the security of a stretch of ocean which at its narrowest is only 1.5 miles wide. I think that kind of fundamentally underscores the why of why connectivity and comedy are critical. But we need to talk a little bit about how to advance that connectivity. And greater connectivity fundamentally is going to require greater infrastructure, and infrastructure is going to require investment. 2.5 trillion over the next 10 years for South Asia alone, according to the World Bank. Roughly speaking, 1/3 of that would go for transportation, another third for energy and electricity, and finally the last third for critical services like water, sanitation, telecommunications. So that's a tall order. One of the statistics that I think is most astounding is that the vast majority of the infrastructure of the India of 2030 has yet to be built. That gives you a sense of the gap that stands before us. But with smart investments from the right stakeholders, that gap certainly can be met. And we have seen India, China, Japan stepping up to focus on that. We've seen the international financial institutions like the World Bank, the Asian Development Bank, and new institutions that are being stood up specifically focusing on that. And also increasingly the public-private partnerships that can fill in the gap. But it also requires the soft infrastructure of improved regulatory frameworks, capable institutions, and better networked businesses and people. And that's where the United States has focused its efforts, on how we can support the kind of soft infrastructure that can help create connectivity, that can help advance trade integration, and that can help advance a shared prosperity agenda. We see ourselves as being able to help create the kinds of and catalyze the kinds of trade and customs and regulatory regimes that can help create the enabling environments that bring the private sector flows. And that is what we have tried to do through things like our Indo-Pacific Economic Corridor Initiative, to create the new energy linkages, to open up the trade routes and the transportation corridors, and to streamline customs procedures and border crossings. Now, in the area of energy, we see another tremendous potential for expanded trade within South Asia. For example, the energy links between India and Bangladesh. We've conducted initial feasibility studies that show that viability of the 500 megawatt energy link, which is now being expanded to 1,000 megawatts. And it's a proof of concept of what can be accomplished in a multi-stakeholder project that is pursued with transparency, quality, and good faith cooperation. Now, we know that through the Act East policy, India is also very much focused on its connectivity with Southeast Asia, and the United States, in conjunction with Japan, have created a US, India, Japan trilateral, which will be meeting for the second time at the ministerial level to, again, advance those areas of connectivity. Increasingly, we're also seeing how we can support that connectivity across South Asia, looking at Sri Lanka, for example, which stands on strategic locations on the sea lanes of commerce across at the tip of the Indian Ocean. And Colombo is already one of the top 15 ports in the world for transshipment and top 30 for total container volume. We're now looking to see how we can support and encourage investment in creating port capacity in Sri Lanka that can help create a greater role for transshipment for Sri Lanka. We think that as we start building that kind of connectivity, that the ability to bring greater opportunity across South Asia and bring South Asian markets into greater connectivity to the rest of the world is fundamentally going to create transformational opportunities. In a few weeks, and increasingly more and more of that connectivity is about sea-based commerce. In a few weeks, Secretary Kerry is going to host the Our Oceans Conference in Washington with a focus on how to create sustainable economic opportunities across our oceans so that marine protected areas, sustainable fisheries, marine pollution, and climate-related impacts on the ocean are factored into as we advance the future of the blue economy. And President Obama last week took the lead when he created the world's largest ecologically protected area in the northwestern Hawaiian Islands, declaring that it is in the public interest to try to preserve that marine environment. And we know that that is also in the global interest. And so what we want to focus on are the cooperative mechanisms that allow us to grow commerce, but also address the areas of competition and the areas of contention. And fundamental to that is creating the kinds of architecture that allow us to be able to resolve issues, to be able to create opportunities. This morning, Foreign Secretary Jaishankar talked about SAARC and India's desire to continue to strengthen and deepen the SAARC mechanism. And we also want to see a greater strengthening of the Indian Ocean Rim Association and how we can use those architectures, regional architectures, to try to advance greater consensus and greater comity as we seek to develop greater connectivity. And so in that sense, I would say that the United States is very much looking forward to engaging in more of these regional fora and welcomes this conference as another addition to that global dialogue on trying to enhance consensus on the Indian Ocean region. And so I look forward to continuing that conversation and participating in the dialogue further. Thank you.